Welcome everyone to Never Alone Live. Tonight is that's our first time doing this at night. Normally our time is at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Tonight here we are doing it at 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And as usual, we have the lovely Krista, aka Sober Barbie. You know me, I'm Johnny. And we're very lucky to have Kyle Overmyer here with us tonight. Um, Kyle, we're just gonna jump in, dude. You've been interviewed all over the place, and you are is it famous or infamous? One or the other.
You better go infamous and by the if you Google, I'm number 72 out of 88 inmates in the state of Ohio. The most infamous out of 70. I'm number 72 out of the most infamous inmates in the state of Ohio. That's what they list me as.
you know we're talking tonight. I think that the label of this meeting was when heroes fall. And but you are a hero that has fallen, and you're going to tell your story, but your hero has fallen but rise back up again. And I can't wait for people to hear your story, Kyle. So I'm just going to turn it over to you. Where did you grow up? Where are you from? All that stuff, fun stuff.
I'm from Fremont, Ohio. That's Northwest Ohio near Lake Erie. Um, you know, just a rural area, a little bit of inner city, you know. Yeah, I had the all American life. Two parents are still married over 50 plus years. My father was, he's a retired captain after 38 years at the Sandusky County Sheriff's Office. My mother worked in the office at a construction business. They put me through a private Catholic school all my life. I played childhood sports. I played football. I was a wrestler, and I was an inner city boxer as well. So yeah, I had a great life, Northwest Ohio, and yeah, that's how it all began, Johnny.
Are you a big Buckeye fan?
Oh, OHIO. That's where I was. I was just a
Oh,
few minutes ago. I was on the campus at the Ohio State Law School speaking. So that's where I just came from a few minutes ago.
Oh,
so
cool.
so you're a big wrestler. You're a big boxer. Did you go to college and all that stuff?
I did. So I started at the University of Toledo. I majored in art. I studied at the Toledo Museum of Art. I paint and draw as well. So after 2 years, didn't know what I wanted to do, so I dropped out of college, came back to Fremont, Ohio, stayed with my parents, worked a couple factory jobs, started competing in powerlifting, bodybuilding. I got in that scene for a while, worked at a gym, and then I kept gravitating back towards what my father did all his life, law enforcement. I went back to him. I said, Dad, I think I want to go to the police academy and follow in your footsteps. You know what he said? Forget about it. And I didn't listen to him. So I jumped on board and put my money together, and I went to the police academy and got out in 1995 and started my career in law enforcement in 1996 at Sandusky County Sheriff's Office, actually in corrections, guys. That's what I first did.
Okay, so in 1996, you jump into law enforcement, and then you are the youngest person to ever become sheriff in Ohio, or was that nationwide?
So no, so I was at that time so I went through the ranks. 1996, I was in corrections, road patrol, detective bureau, homicide. I worked homicide cases, narcotics, and then I did undercover for 3 years with DEA as well. I bought actually from the cartel, buying large quantities of cocaine. That's what I did for 3 years, and then from then, my sheriff, who was actually grooming me to be the next sheriff, it came, at an early age. He passed away, and then I was appointed over my chief deputy, who was 60 years old and 30 years law enforcement. I was 34, making me the youngest sheriff in the state of Ohio at the time, and still currently the youngest in that county history.
Wow.
Youngest sheriff. How did that make you feel?
You know what? I think at the time I didn't realize, and because it was so overwhelming, guys. But I embraced it, and kind of like I jumped on the field as a rookie and I ran with the football. That's what I did. I had to. I had no other choice. I had some big shoes to fill, and it happened in 2008 when during that time there was a lot of foreclosures. You saw the stock market crash, and so also my budget got cut almost 300,000. So that's kind of interesting because during that time I had to come up with innovative ways so I didn't you know cut jobs and I didn't lay people off. So due to being the sheriff, I had a jail, and then outside the jail I had over 2 acres of land that was fenced in. So I came up with the idea. I ran a jail garden. And I went to the community. Everybody jumped on board. They donated. The inmates raised the vegetables, and then I turned around and used those vegetables to feed the inmates inside the jail, which was one of my biggest pieces of my budget was the inmates. So I went from there, and I did that the first year, saved thousands of dollars, and then I even then turned around and got a chicken coop donated and raised my own chickens and used that to utilize to feed the inmates as well, and it took off quite well, believe it or not.
So did you have a you married kids, all that
I
jazz?
was. I was first wife. She was a high school teacher. I had two children at the time, Michaela, and they were both very young. Michaela, and I had a son. I have a son, Dylan, as well. So yeah, I was established. I had the all American life. Youngest sheriff. My wife then was a teacher, two kids, and everything was going great.
And this is political. You're elected to become sheriff.
Yes, I was elected every 4 years, guys. That's how it is in the state of Ohio. I know from state to state everything is different, but in Ohio it's every 4 years. So you got to run. So if you get beat, then guess what? You're out of a job. So it's a tough gig, and you're voted in. You're usually the top vote getter in the county each time, and you're the most powerful law enforcement officer in that county. It's a great rank. It's very honorable, and I was proud to be the sheriff and to be that young. Yeah, I took on a lot of responsibilities, and it all came fast to me.
So yeah. How long were you in let's call it the good years, Kyle? I know your story, and we're going to be telling our listeners and everybody else your story. So let's talk. Let's talk about the good times. How long were the good times good?
The good times were good until about I was, well, because I became sheriff at 34, 36, 37, then diagnosed with arthritis. And that is where a lot of the changes happened. I was diagnosed with arthritis. I broke both of my ankles playing childhood sports. And I turned around, so they said, "Look, Kyle, the only way you're going to deal with this, they prescribed me 105 Vicodin a month." And and then the reason why I'm able to talk about this, I've been through therapy. I've been in recovery now over 10 years. So I'm able to talk about these things. So one of the most traumatic things that happened to me, I was involved with a fatal shooting where there was a man that had a shotgun, was going to kill his family. So myself and the SWAT team entered in. He pointed a shotgun at us and we had to take his life. And of course, I was there. It was my decision, and I was then sued for $20 million. And I eventually went through about a 3-week federal trial to clear my name and clear the other guys' names. And ultimately, I was found not guilty and didn't have to pay the 20 million. But during that time, I took care of my guys that were part of the incident, but I didn't take care of me. And the next traumatic event that really hit home with me was I witnessed two brothers and their friend. They fell through the ice in the mouth of the river, and we went out to save them, and they lost their lives in front of us, and that took a toll on me as well. So during that time, of course, I didn't take care of Kyle. I took care of everybody else because I had this big ego and thought, you know what, I'm too strong. I'm the sheriff. I'm the lead law enforcement officer here in the county. I don't need help. But my help then turned into The 105 Vicodin didn't last a month anymore. They lasted about a week. So then I graduated to stealing from my parents, who I love very much, but I stole, cheated, manipulated any way I could. I stole pills from them because they both have arthritis. And it even got to the point that I knew when my dad was getting his Percocets filled, that I would always volunteer to go pick them up for him so he didn't have to take the trip to the pharmacy. And you know how there's a bag where, at the bag where there's a they staple it at the top when they close it up. I even went to the so far I carried a stapler in my vehicle. So
Oh
I
my.
always had a stapler. I mean, I did everything I could to figure out how to feed my addiction. You know, so then I started a doctor shop. I went to multiple doctors and, would come up with stories that, I lifted my lawnmower, did this and that. I went as far as even manipulate my own jail doctor that I had that took care of the inmates. And I graduated from Percocet to Oxycontin.
Mm.
And so I had to keep up coming up with some creative ways. And then if you guys are familiar with the take back boxes where they throw out to dispose of all the old pills. So we were the hub where we had a big compartment where we could that everybody could get rid of theirs, and then DEA would come pick them up. So I went around to each police station and I went and picked them up, and then I would come back to my office and I would lock my doors and I would barricade that those doors so nobody could get in. And I would dump all those pills out on my office floor of the sheriff's office, and I would go through them and pilfer through them and look like I was a kid,
Yeah.
at Halloween,
It
and
on
going through
Halloween.
through the best candy. And boy, did I do it! So I did those.
I'm kind of.
Um,
Did you ever watch the show DuckTales back in the day?
no,
When
yeah, I remember. Yeah, DuckTales.
Scrooge McDuck with the gold coins, and he woo.
And that I was Scrooge McDuck all over again. But yeah, so I mean, I went that far, and then it kept, it got worse and worse. But I would never try to actually admit to myself that it was addiction, because how could I be an addict when I would throw and arrest people that I said were addicts and put them in jail? And what I did to justify a couple things was, no, I couldn't be addicted because I was prescribed these. And next, they were being thrown out, so they were trash. So that's how I justified my addiction and continued to my denial along the way, because I had so much shame and guilt. But then eventually, what happened, it all caught up with me. February 3rd, 2015. I go to the pharmacy, and Leslie, who's a pharmacist, and everybody knew me. I was a sheriff. I went in there all the time. She said, when I went in to get my Vicodin that month, on that day, she said, Kyle, I want to talk to you for a minute. Hey, I didn't know what she had going on. I figured, hey, she was going to tip me off. Somebody was buying a lot of Sudafed, cooking meth in the area.
Yeah.
And she says, Kyle, you're done. I said, what do you mean I'm done? She said, look, you're being red flagged. Look, you're going to multiple doctors, and you're getting Percocets here, Oxycontin here, and that. She goes, I have to report you. I took an oath, and that's it. So of
Oh.
course I got sick to my stomach. I got worried, and I went home, and I only had one Vicodin left, guys. And what I had to do, my wife then was a school teacher. My kids would go off to school. So I flushed the last Vicodin down the toilet because I was so scared. And I began to detox myself at home, because I would pretend like I'd go to work during the day. I was a sheriff. I could manipulate my schedule, put my uniform on, then I would turn around, and then I'd come and lay sick during the day. And then I knew when I was coast was clear, I'd get out and then pretend, of course, I act like I would be coming home from work. So that's how I actually did it. So I thought everything was done with. I didn't think nobody knew about my dirty little secret. And unfortunately, then eventually it all caught up with me. I went through I was going through my third term for reelection. I ran against actually the police chief that was my next door neighbor. I ended up beating him actually, and by 60, I got 62% of the votes, and they even tried to pull another stunt on me to derail me. I had a Twitter account at the time, and it went by Young Sheriff. And my Twitter account, I mean, I had rappers following me, I had porn stars following me, I'd follow them back. Well, then they get into my Twitter and say, Kyle Overmyer, the sheriff, is following porn stars, and tried to make a big episode out of that. What ended up backfiring on people, because people actually embraced, because I was kind of real, everybody would come up and
Yeah.
say, hey, I think it's kind of cool that, you don't discriminate against anybody, blah, blah, blah. So it kind of backfired on them. And I think that's what helped actually take me through the primary. Well, then eventually I got a phone call from the county prosecutor a couple of months after, and he wanted me to meet him down in his office. And I said, what's going on? He says, well, he goes, are you addicted to opiates? I said, no. And he says, are you sure? I said, look, I was on opiates for arthritis. I was prescribed. I said, I'll pee in a cup right now. I said, I'm clean, which I was physically, but mentally, of course, I was still struggling, with the addiction. So immediately I get a hold of an attorney, and I retain one. So on what happened was August 23rd, 2016. The county fair was always like one of the biggest things that went on in our county, especially for people like myself that were, in politics and that would have to get reelected, because that's where all the people were. That's where a lot you got to get all your votes from. And I was there for the ribbon cutting. And then that night at 6:30, I got a phone call. They had contacted my attorney. I had a 43 count indictment looking at 15 years in prison. And I was like, oh, like, I can't believe this. And of course, I told my wife right away then, and my kids, look, it's all a bunch of BS. They're out to get me. Um, Wait, they just want my job. So I ended up going to the hearing. I turned myself in, and the next day I bonded out on $150,000 bond. And you know what I got? You know what I did? I continued to run for sheriff, and because I didn't want anybody to know about my addiction. I wanted to make it out like it was everybody else. And continued on. I marched in parades. I did debates. We did even phone tolls where my numbers were going through the roof. It made me more popular. I mean, people wanted to support me. They felt bad. They thought everybody was out to get me. Well, then my son Dylan, he was 12 at the time, and he was about to be 13. And prior to all this, Dylan and I went to a hunter safety through a hunter safety course together, and we were gonna go hunt together and go deer hunt. And he wanted a crossbow for his birthday. So love my kids to death. I love Michaela and Dylan. I mean, the kids, they're my world. And so I went out and bought him a crossbow, and then I took it over to my in-laws' house. A couple of weeks later, I get a phone call from my attorney. He's like, hey, did you buy a crossbow? I said, yeah, why? He says, well, the prosecutor contacted me, and you're going to have a hearing. They're going to try to violate your bond for having a dangerous weapon.
No.
So lo and behold, I go to court on November 3rd. I'll never forget, like it was yesterday. I go to drop off Dylan at school. He looks at me. He says, Dad, I know you have court today. You gonna be home for dinner? My famous last words, I got this. I went, they revoked my bond, locked me up. It was over. 250,000 cash, no 10%. It had to be cash. And that is part of the turning point of my recovery too. Part two from getting, red flagged at the pharmacy than this. And that's when I had to surrender. They sent me to a county jail. I started to surrender to my parents, talk to them. Things were pretty rocky, and I'll get into that later on with my wife. And I didn't want to, really reveal too much to my children. And that is actually where I went to my first AA meeting. Actually, was there in Marion County Jail, and it consisted of three people. One of those three being myself. So that's where I started to really dig down deep, understand that I was an addict and I still needed help. Started talking about it. I started writing letters. I wrote letter to the prosecutor, the judge. People sent support letters, and then eventually I worked out a plea deal between my attorney and the prosecutor. Out of the 43 counts, I pled to 15 felony counts then. And they ended up taking me back to court on December
Now, let me
13th.
ask you, what were these? What were these? I know there's all these indictments and all these felonies. What were these? What were these? These were all for the.
Doctor shopping, theft of pills, and then they got me with theft of office for one of the accounts too. That yes, but the majority was all the doctor shopping and the stealing the pills. That's what it was.
Okay, so for anybody joining us later, so you got into office. You're doing really good. Things were going good. You got sick. Arthritis. Arthritis is pain. You're in pain all the time, and you started on this. And addiction, when it takes a hold, it takes a hold, and it doesn't. You know, that's the one thing about addiction is it doesn't care what your job is. It doesn't care what your title is. It doesn't care if you're a man, woman, what your race or your religion. It comes and it takes over, and it took over. And
Yeah.
but then you actually were you. I mean, I'm still kind of, my mind is going all over with this story because you were able to detox at home by yourself while trying to maintain. Now, granted, that's pride and ego taking over. Pride and ego
Oh,
jumps in, and I still got to be the man. I still got to do this. I still
oh,
got to save face.
you're exactly right. And plus, that's that shame pushing you so your children do not find out about your addiction. But don't get it twisted, guys. I was on the internet looking at different ways to feed that addiction, still trying to replace that, that release of dopamine. But then I got too scared to order anything. I'm like, well, they're going to find out about this next. And so, of course, yeah, this stuff was really tough, and of course mentally you continue to struggle from addiction because you obsess about it. I mean, they say your brain, it takes over 18 months for that fog to actually get out of your brain. I mean, that fog was still there with me, guys, even when here I am sitting in jail, and then I go back to get sentenced, and this is where we lead up to getting sentenced on December 13th, 2016, and they take me back. It is wall to wall with news media, cameras, everybody. They even had a live camera on my residence during this time, one of the TV stations, to see what was going on at my house too. And I turned around. I was broken. I was crying. I apologized to everybody in that courtroom that was in that audience because I was truly sorry. And I turned around, and the judge said, what do you have to say for yourself? And I said, Judge, I'm sorry. I'm an addict. I need help. I'm still struggling, and I'm sorry for what I did. And she said, you know what? I'll get you treatment. And I'm going to give you the best treatment in the state of Ohio. You're going to prison for 4 years. And I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do? And as we well know, because I'm sitting here with you two today, probably one of the best things that ever happened to me. And but it was difficult at first. I was sent to intake at Grafton, Ohio, where I served my first 30 days in solitary confinement in the hole because they were going to send me to protective custody. And what was interesting was, there was no light in there. It was dark at all time, no clock. And the only time I knew when it was time to eat, when the wheels would turn on that concrete floor, and it would trigger me to say, okay, it's time to eat. But that was also the best time for me to realize where I needed to go and who I needed to be in life, because I could have went one way or the other way. There's no reason why I couldn't have got out and been one of the best drug traffickers around, because I knew the ins and outs and I had the plugs from working undercover, and I was street smart. But then I knew what I needed to do, the right thing. And I'm going to tell you guys something. I went to Catholic school all my life, and I never knew God until then. That's where God met Kyle Overmyer, and I finally listened to him. He whispered a lot all my life, but this time he was yelling at me, and I needed to listen. And that's my first connection to truly be close to God. And You don't realize it at that moment until time goes on. But that's when it was. So I spent 30 days there. They sent me to protective custody off the jump, and because of my high profile case. But when I got off the bus, I got greeted by everybody, and I had a guy take me in a cell, and he says, "Look, we know why you're here, so here's what I got." So he had a bag of pills ready for me. He said, "The first one's on me, the next one's on you." And I said, "Well, I'm going to tell you something. There ain't going to be a first one or a next one. I'm done." And that's where I set the tone for my sobriety, and that what my recovery was while I was incarcerated for 4 years. Um, I stayed in protective custody for a few months, and eventually I signed out and I went to general population with everybody. Just it wasn't for me. I needed to move. It was too much control in there, and then I was able to move on the yard, work out, and do my thing because 4 years was a long time. Um, yes, I got tried while I was in there. There was a gang member that tried me, and he didn't have a good day. I handled it, and that's where I set the tone, where I was in recovery, and nobody was going to come try to control me and walk on me and try to extort me. My roommate was a member of the Aryan Brotherhood who shot tattoos, and I even got two tattoos while I was in prison. My first Father's Day, I traded like 10 ramen noodles, and on my first Father's Day to pay homage to my kids, I got their names on the back of my each arm. Something to take home, and they're proud of those, and so am I. Um, I became an inmate. I'm 6'9", 183. I actually got it tattooed on me. I had to become an inmate for 4 years. I knew I could be an inmate and still stay sober though too. I mean, the prison was flooded with drugs every day. I had access to anything I wanted, but I continued to stay abstinent. I recovered out loud in prison, and people knew it. It got to the point where some of the individuals that I became friends with that struggled with addiction while they were in there, they would gravitate towards me because they wanted me to give them some advice and some of my strength too. And that's where I started to understand what I was going to end up probably doing with my life. Um, I ended up getting a divorce while I was in prison. I went through bankruptcy. And honestly, and I speak about this a lot because there's no bones left in my closet. But on the day I got sentenced to 4 years, they played my jail phone calls of my mistress and I speaking. I had a girlfriend. I was cheating on my wife, and that's how my wife and kids found out. So when they wanted to bury me, they didn't bury me. I took responsibility for my actions with my ex-wife, with my children, and I took it like a man. I did my time. I stayed sober. Um, what I did, I did. My addiction was the ultimate seed that made the criminal charges grow, and I took responsibility for all of them. I did my time. But the best thing I did about being in prison is I worked on myself every day. um, you know, whether it be a gratitude list. And what was disheartening was, I went to prison at 42 years old. I'm 51 now. Guys, I didn't even know what the word gratitude was until I was locked up in a 6x9 and I had everything taken away from me and I had to share a toilet and a room with somebody for 4 years. But I needed that. That was part of my recovery. I needed to lose everything. I mean, I truly believe that God strips people of things for reasons. I know. I mean, he did it to me, but I know he knew I was strong enough, and he brought out some of the best characteristics that I never knew I had. And everybody says, "Oh, Kyle, oh, that sounds so terrible." No, it wasn't. That's part of the journey. He gave me a blessing and not a curse. That's what he gave me. or I wouldn't be sitting in front of you guys right now.
In the program, because we work the same program, we call it the gift of desperation. The gift, and it truly is a gift, because it's what allows us to be willing to be open to hearing his message. And and it's the beginning of humility. And you know what, while you were talking, this is November, right? And we're in it's sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him. There's so many people that find God in jail.
Oh yeah.
And you find God in jail because now all of a sudden we're forced to meditate for the first time, you know. And we might have been praying our whole lives and kneeling and standing up and kneeling down and standing up again, you know, and that's just talking. But when we listen, suddenly that humility can come in. And Kyle, dude, I'm telling you, I love you. I love how you share your story, and you are just, our past becomes our best asset, and you have that, and it's so beautiful to see. Because I mean, the humility that you have, you know, and the understanding, the way that, and I'm so glad that you're sharing it with our people today, because you know there's people that are struggling out here, and they need to hear a story like yours, that just, you know, I needed to find God, and God was with me all the time, and I found him. There he was. And all right, so sorry I interrupted, but
No, no,
you had my
no, and
mind going, and it's all connected.
no, and finding God, like when I was locked up for 30 days in the hole, I had to realize now that isolation created the elevation in my mind. It truly did. And that's where, like, we go back to Johnny, we were just talking about God. That's where, he never leaves us, he leads us. And that's where people get, all screwed up. He's always been with me, but I never listened to him, and now I do every day. I talk, and I always say, people will say, "Who do you work for?" I said, "God." He's my CEO, and I'm one of the board of trustees. You know what I mean? That's what I do.
Yeah.
I mean, and you know what? And people like, and that's another thing. I'm so vulnerable, and I talk about it, and I'll keep talking about more because I really don't care what people think about me. I really don't. Only him up there. He's my judge.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else, guys, I don't care. I know I'm on the right path. He shows me, he guides me. I let him drive, and I sit in the back seat. That's what I do, and I'm going to continue to do that. But if I didn't go through this, I didn't go do 4 years in prison. If I didn't go through addiction, if I didn't go through bankruptcy, if I didn't go through humiliation, I'll talk more about that here pretty soon. I would not be where I am today. But he wanted me to go through it. He wanted me to, and I'm grateful for it too. I'm grateful every day, and so no, hey, something else I did to understand other people's higher powers. So my workout partner was a blood who did 7 years in federal prison. Then he had to finish his state. He was a blood. He was a Muslim. So I used to get irritated because he was always on the prayer rug, and I wanted to go get that money. That's what we called it in prison, to go work out. And I'd say, "Hey, come on, Mario, let's go. I want to get that money." And I'm like, "You're always on that prayer rug." I go, "It irritates me." So he threw a Quran at me, and he said, "Understand it." I said, "Okay." So I ended up reading the Quran out of respect for his religion. I went as far as I did Ramadan, and I fasted for 30 days, sun up to sundown with him too. I lost a bunch of weight too, but it made me understand and appreciate his religion, because sometimes people are so misled about other people's beliefs, their higher powers, but we must respect them. All in all, look, guys, we're praying to the same God, all right? We are, Jesus Christ. I mean, he's our savior. But I wanted to appreciate his religion, but when it comes down to it, I look at a relationship with our higher power. That's what it is. And so I even did that while I was in there. I mean, I got so deep into things, guys, that it changed me mentally, physically, and spiritually. And that's what I needed. I needed those things. I always say, hey, I got a 4-year degree already and another 2-year degree. Well, I just got an additional 4-year degree doing time for 4 years. It's called Life 101, and I needed it. It was. And, people, I mean, I never thought in a million years I'd say I was grateful for doing time, but I
Yeah.
am. I am. So, no, I got out. So I got out 2016. And there was a brief stint when I got out with like a couple weeks. I got to stay with this girl that come up in my life from my past, and then she kicked me out. We had a falling out, and I ended up homeless. And I I'm on parole. I had a ankle monitor, and I had to find somewhere to flop because the parole officer says, "Hey, look, Kyle, if anybody's going to go back to prison, they're going to send you back for a violation." So I called a woman. Her and her girlfriend used to send me cards. She worked at the library at Terra State Community College, where I was actually a board of trustee there at one time, and I used to visit her. And her and her girlfriend always said, "Look, if you need anything, let me know." So by a roll of a dice, I called, and she said, I told her what was going on. She says, "Look, I got a spare bedroom with an air mattress. You can flop there." So I did. And that was what I called home for a while. And then it was time to get a job. And I don't know if you guys were aware of this, but so nobody's going to hire the disgraced sheriff. Coming back, I had to be in my hometown of Fremont, Ohio. And I go back to this guy named Larry Bowman. Larry Bowman owned a couple of Lee's Famous Recipe chicken restaurants. And I used to frequent there all the time, had a good relationship. So I stopped in, kind of laid it on him and said, "Hey, you got nothing open, do you?" He goes, "Matter of fact, I need somebody on that fryer." And so my first job, I was frying chicken, 9.50 an hour back in my hometown. And so flopping there on an air mattress, frying chicken, still had an ankle monitor. And it was interesting because people started to find out from around the community I was there. So they came in and started taking pictures of me and creating memes and putting them on Facebook.
Oh,
And instead of feeling sorry for myself, I turned it up. I started hitting more meetings, getting closer with my children, working that program, and it made me even stronger. And then eventually I was going to a lot of meetings, and I met an individual that said to me, he says, "Hey, we know who you are, and, um, just wondered what you're doing with your life now since you're out of prison." I said, "Well, I'm frying chicken right now." He goes, "Oh," he says, "How much you make?" I said, 9.50 an hour. He goes, "Would you come work midnight shift at the treatment center and oversee these guys while they're sleeping for 11.50?" I'm just like, "I'm in."
oh my
So,
gosh.
so I left frying chicken and then ended up working there. And, I started to realize even more that, um, man, this is where I need to be. I need to be helping people because I could relate with people. People would
Yeah,
listen to me. I was a voice of reason. Um, I knew how to love on them. You got to love on people.
yeah.
And then I ended up getting enough money. I ended up getting an apartment in the hood where I used to kick doors in. That was all I could afford. And it was interesting because I'm moving to the hood. I'm moving into the hood, and a lot of the dope boys I knew from working dope cases. One of them shows up, walks up, and they're like, "What's up, Kyle?" I said, "Yeah, I'm moving in." They're like, "Well, welcome to the neighborhood, but remember, you're one of us now." And they embraced me. It was so interesting. Even some of those guys, I didn't have a whole lot yet. I didn't have much food. Some of those guys bringing me down plates of food, chicken, collard greens. I was living the life. I was the street life, but I was still, staying on the right path. And then I continued to work there. And then November, I got out April 6th of 2020 is when I got out. And then November 22nd, 2020 comes around, and I have a woman.
Where'd he go?
Oh no!
This is getting so
Right
good.
when it was right at the good part, Kyle.
Come back, Kyle. Oh,
Okay, so Kyle's having technical difficulties. I'm telling
we'll
you, what
figure
a
it out. We'll figure. He's got to come
hopefully
back.
he'll figure it out and join us again. What an
Oh, he's
amazing
coming back.
story
Wait.
so far. I saw a blip. What do you think of this story so far,
Oh,
Krista?
this is wild. I can relate so much to this. Like a lot of full circle moments. We're not talking about the trauma he went through being a first responder.
Yeah, I've still got so many questions.
You know,
I
the
have so many
trauma that
questions.
plays a role in addiction.
Anybody who knows me knows I have questions.
Oh my gosh, this has me on the edge of my seat.
Oh, I saw him mute and unmute. Let's jump over in the comments real quick and just say hey to our friends that are here. Kelly is here. Thank you for joining us. Tiffany, our friend Tiffany, who's here. Amber's here. Kendall Ray's here. Kendall took a break from walking. Kendall has walked over 9,400 miles now. And who else do we got?
Amber.
Hello, Stacy. Hello, Michael. Hello, Jessica's here.
Tiffany.
I'm so glad everybody's been able to join us. Was Chase in here?
Yep.
So many people have been in here and commented. Love you all. Love the comments. Johnny always got questions. That's for sure, Tiffany. That's it's kind of my job.
I have so much to say. I'm blown away right now, and how much like both of our stories are in there too. Like we're so connected, and I want to cry.
I mean, the gift of desperation that we find in jail, right? Kyle found his gift of desperation there. He found God there. Reading the Quran there. That's tough, and you did the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Or you didn't read the Quran.
But in the humble pie he had, like he literally ate that up. Humility. Yeah. Oh, wait.
Okay.
He's coming back.
He popped out. He's gonna pop back in. Hopefully his wife will help him. He had trouble logging in to begin with, so hopefully his wife will help him, and we'll get this figured out. But yeah, Krista, you same thing, right? You found this. You got your gift of desperation in jail.
Yeah, and I can relate too with the growing up Catholic and not really knowing. You know who God is, but you don't know how to actually surrender. He's back. He's back. He's back. You left us on the edge of our seats.
Well, I know it kicked me off for some reason.
Well, you're back. You're back.
All right, I'm back because I was rolling.
Yeah.
We filled in while you were gone. You were on a roll. You were cooking fried chicken, and then you were on the blow up bed. Living in the hood. They'd bring you greens.
Yes, and then everything's going smooth. I'm doing my thing, and then I'm not coming out on Facebook, social media, doing anything. And one midnight shift when I was working, I decided to get back on Facebook, and I thought it was time to come out and talk and be transparent and honest and start talking about my journey. And I did, and it exploded.
In a good way?
In a great way. People were so glad to see me. They reached out. I started to talk about addiction, the struggles, and and then I would post things and talk and some of my journey in prison, and people started to reach out to me. They could relate. People were asking out for help. Could you help me? Can you help my child? And I knew I'd done the right thing. And it got so far that eventually then there was a woman that came along, and she reached out to me, and had been involved with some nonprofit things and some things that in the addiction, along with her job that she would support, and was community oriented. And she said, "Hey, I love your story. I would love to sit down and talk to you. I get up Northwest Ohio sometime. Could I meet with you and your girlfriend and eat lunch?" I said, "I can meet with you and eat lunch, but I don't have no girlfriend." Wouldn't you know, after we meet November 22nd, 2020, we end up falling in love, and 6 weeks later we get married.
That's my son's birthday.
Is it really?
Yeah.
We got married 6 weeks after that.
Oh, I love a love story. This is good.
And so Jennifer, I was living in the hood then, and she believed in me. She believed in what I wanted to do, and I told her what I was going to do. And she's like, "All right." And actually, she asked me to marry her, and because she said, "What are you doing?" She said, "What are you doing on January 2nd?" It was a Saturday. I said, "I don't know." She goes, "You want to go get married?" I said, "Let's do it." So we did. We went and got married. And we got married at, at this place called Serenity Farms. It's interesting. I have the Serenity prayer tattooed on my arm, and kind of meant to be. And we got
Yeah.
married, and I was good. So she was living down by Columbus, because I live down by we live down by Columbus, and she and I was living up north, like 2 hours away, and so it was going to be a long distance marriage. So we're out eating pit pizza 7 days afterwards, and the phone rings. And the guy says, "Hey, is this Kyle Overmyer?" And I said, "Yeah." He's like, "Hey, we just opened a treatment center. We got a treatment center open down in Columbus, Ohio, and love your story. Found it. Think you could do some things for us. Would you be interested in a job in business development in Columbus?" I'm like, God's talking again.
Mm-hmm.
So boom, I moved down there, and people had started to reach out, want me to pop in and start speaking. And I did. Actually, one of my first speeches I did was the Exchange Club. That was a local exchange club in Fremont. It was community. The president reached out to me, and I was a little, hesitant to do it because of, everybody was kind of mad. Some people were still mad at me and that. He said, "No, come share your story." It did. It was one of the best things I ever did. They embraced it. They embraced me because of my honesty and transparency, and being relatable. And so I started working, and I come home from work the one time, and Jen's like, "You're getting all these people wanting you to speak and that." She goes, "Why don't you just have like a little LLC and put it together? It's called KO Addiction." And I'm like, "Yeah," because everybody growing up called me KO Knockout. I don't have a middle
Yeah.
name, and I was a boxer, and Knockout Addiction, and with boxing gloves, and we called it a day, and that's how KO Addiction started.
Wow. She's a smart
Ever-
girl.
She is. She is. She just helped me figure this out again too, by the way.
Yeah.
So so
Oh,
she's been a blessing. And so we got married, and then I worked at a couple different treatment centers. I signed a book deal 2 years ago. I will be done by the end of this year now, and be releasing my book after the first of the year. It's going to be called Prison Prodigy.
love it.
Yeah, so now I got it down to write a chapter a week, and I meet with my co-author, who's amazing. And now I'm at the point, I'm a director of business development. I oversee 11 outpatient treatment centers here in Central
Wow.
Ohio. Like I said, I speak. I do a lot of panel work. I was at Ohio State University Law School today. Tomorrow night, I'll actually be at a National Association of Healthcare Executives. I've been picked to be on the panel for their scholarship dinner tomorrow night. I'll be doing that at downtown Columbus. Travel the country, do speaking gigs, different places, recovery events. Even I'm going to be doing a builders conference at Ohio State. They want me to come in and talk about the stigma. um, you know, God has opened up so many doors for me, and continues to every day. Like here I am on with you guys tonight. I'm did one earlier a little bit ago that I'm doing today, and then tomorrow I'd go back to back. I love doing this stuff. I think it's great to share the word, because if you can touch one person, it's in that's what it's all about.
Hmm.
And you don't know when the right person's listening, and life's been so great. I mean, my kids, we're all back together. I even get along with my ex-wife. We actually, her and her husband, we do family things together because of, my kids are all grown. They both graduate from college. They actually have great jobs. My daughter's in education. Her husband's a chemical engineer. My son graduated from Tiffin University, where I did, on a baseball scholarship. He is in sales in Arizona. Um, and now I have 2 grandchildren and another one on the way, December 26th. So, I mean, what more you want in life, you know? And God keeps giving it to me, but I got to keep writing chapters every day. But that's okay. I'm grateful for that writing. I'm grateful for those chapters. And I'm working on my pardon too with the state of Ohio. The story will always be there, but if God wants to bless me and he thinks it's time for me to get a pardon, I would love that too. That would be a great piece of my journey and my story. I work with Ohio Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. I've just been appointed to the governor's coalition. They pick one male inmate that was restored, and then one female. They just appointed me in June, so I'm on that. I go
Wow.
back. Yeah, so I get back to the prisons now. I go into prisons and speak and give them hope. I've been back to the prison. I actually served my time in twice, and saw some of the guys that I did my time with that are doing life bits in there. But I'm still giving them hope.
Mhm.
I get into the jails. I work with first responders. I do critical incident training here for Franklin County Sheriff's Office. I'm working with the first responders. They've accepted me too, because you know what? I accepted responsibility of my actions, and I use my addiction now for a good thing.
Mhm.
Um, and
So
all in
Kyle,
all,
I've got two
Wow.
questions, Kyle. Kyle, I mean, and I know our audience, and there's two questions that they're thinking right now. Well, the first one is your relationship with your kids and family when you got out. I mean, eventually it fixed.
yeah,
How long did that take? What was the process of the forgiveness? Because this is,
yeah.
recovery. Recovery is all about God forgives us. We forgive ourselves. We ask for amends. We hope that they forgive too.
Yeah, it took a while, but I had to put the work in. I
Mhm.
had to, I can't only talk it, but I got to walk it. And I got to continue to talk it and walk it, which I do. And that's where I am, because I put the work in. But also, one of the toughest things for me, and I hope some of the listeners hear this too, because you guys are going to probably agree 110% with me, forgiving yourself.
Yeah.
I had such a hard time forgiving myself for what I did, especially to my family. Because at the beginning, we think we're the victims and we're not.
Mhm.
Our families and our loved ones are the victims. They're the true victims of this disease, not us. And that's where I had to get it right. But it took my son when he was 20 years old, we were together, and now he's 22. And we're walking together, and I said, Dylan, I'm truly sorry for all I did. I just want you to know that. He stops me and looks at me and says, mind you, he's 20 years old, and says, Dad, what are you talking about? That shit's over with. It's over.
Oh.
And I'm like, okay. So I had to have a 20-year-old kid, so to speak, tell a man that was the sheriff, been down for prison, made it through addiction, to tell me about forgiveness.
Yeah.
Kind of cool, actually.
Yeah.
It shows me what kind of kid he is, but both of my kids are amazing kids. They showed me what resilience truly was.
Mhm.
You know, some people think I'm resilient. Nah, they got it. They got it.
Oh.
I mean, and I asked that because when being in recovery, and there's so many people that we have relationships with that we talk to all the time, and the children, they're still trying to get that relationship, and they're trying to get that. So this is that hope, and out of the mouth of babes, right? Out of the mouth of babes, even at 20, they're still babes,
Yeah.
And okay, so my second question, and this is. So you're in jail, you're in prison, you're
Yeah,
locked up with people that you locked up.
yeah, yep.
How did I mean? Because I know you told us you went through some shenanigans, but
Yeah.
this had to be, were they cool with it? Like, hey,
You know what? Yeah, yeah, they were cool with it. And I'm gonna tell you another interesting story. They were cool with it. I crossed paths with so many people that knew me, knew each. It was crazy. But so when you're in prison, you get invited to Thanksgiving and stuff. So my first Thanksgiving, I got invited. So you bring a bowl, you bring a break or something. And I'll never forget sitting there, and I looked around and I looked at all the people. There was about 10 of us at the table, and we're all chopping it up, eating, and I look around, I go, guys, look around at each other, and they're like, yeah. And I said, you notice anything interesting? And they're like, yeah, you're the only white guy. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And I'm like, no, think about this, guys. You're blood, you're Crip, you're Latino, you guys are from different sides. I said, why does it take prison to bring us all together?
Yeah.
Why can't we do this on the outside? You know? I said, I was a cop, and you guys are messing with me. You guys, we're breaking bread, we're chopping it up. But we can't do this on the outside, can we? But once
Yeah.
once we're all forced to be together, we do. So why can't we? And they're like, you know what, Kyle? You're right. There was so many aha moments, you know, while I was incarcerated, so they had they had Black History Month in prison. And so if you wrote an essay, you could win a prize. So I turned around, I wrote an essay about Martin Luther King Jr., was a great leader who was incarcerated in Alabama. So I wrote a long essay about that, and kind of coincided with my own experience in being incarcerated too. So I'll never forget, I get a knock on my door. This black woman comes and she says, I'm looking for Overmyer. And she's got a least famous recipe chicken dinner, mind you. And that's where I ended up working. And that's what you want. And I said, well, that's me. And she's like, no, it's not you. It's not you. And I said, she goes, let me see your ID. I said, it's Overmyer 692-183. And she says, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. It is you. I said, what? She goes, I thought you were going to be black. How would you? And she goes, I really apologize for judging you like that. And I was like, isn't that interesting? You know? And then I ended up frying chicken at Leach. That was my thing. But those are some of the things that I experienced along the way while I was incarcerated that I'm so damn grateful for. I mean, how many people can say that I've been through what I've been through? Not many.
Yeah.
And I smile every day. I enjoy seeing the man in the mirror now. Not that I'm a great looking guy by any means, but now I can look at it. I got no shame no more. I don't hate myself anymore. I have self-love, which I struggled with. And I think a lot of men struggle talking about it, but I don't, because you got to talk about it. If not, it won't ever get fixed. It's like in everything else. And one of my famous last lines I tell everybody, your past does not define you. It surely refines you.
Oh, I love this guy. I say that all the time. It's true.
Kyle, thank you so much, dude. Thank you for being here and for being so open, so honest, and telling us just like it is, And, I think that anybody who hears you hears hope, the love you have for God, and the understanding you have with God, And a lot of people, it takes a dark time to find that, but that it doesn't have to. And, I hope people figure that out, that it doesn't take getting into a jail cell and being locked in solitary for 30 days to find God. No, it doesn't. And God's everywhere and always there to be with us. Thank you so much, dude. I want you to come back here after your book comes out, and we'll have a book signing party or something like that. It'll be awesome.
Definitely. And one more thing I want you guys to know, to go back to God, my wife and I put icing on the cake and sealed the deal. 2 years ago, we got baptized in front of our whole congregation.
Amen.
So, just want to give hope to everybody out there, and all the love I can, and the hope plant that seed of hope, because believe me, I've planted it and I see it grow every day.
Every day, every day. I just want to, once again, just thank you for being here, for sharing with us, and we can't wait for you to have your book out. We're gonna work on we have this Freedom Fest event coming. I told you about it in January 23rd to the 25th. I'm hoping you can get out to that. We'll figure that out, talk later.
Okay.
But if how do people find you if they want to talk to Kyle? If somebody wanted to reach out, how do they do that?
All right, I'm pretty transparent, honest, open, blunt. I don't care. Call me 419-455-0793. I look, that's how the last speaking gig found me on one of the podcasts I did. They called me out of Chicago and they were shocked I answered, but I answer all my phone calls, okay? You can find me, Kyle Overmyer, on Facebook. You can find me there. I mean, people send me messages every day, and I'm on LinkedIn too. I do LinkedIn a lot too. So I just whatever, however you want to call me, or here's my my Kyle Overmyer 7 at gmail.com. I mean, it used to be K Overmyer 692-183, and I had to shut that one down. So, but yeah, I'm personable. What you see is what you get with me. Okay.
Kyle, like I said, dude, thanks
Seriously,
so much.
thank you.
This has
Thank
been a real treat for us, and I know our listeners are grateful. They're all saying such great things in the comments. So everybody, love you. We'll see you next week. Once again, Kyle, thank you so much, and we'll talk soon.
With that, I pass.